never forget, you know, at the darkest hour of racist apartheid, she was the light. We had not seen Nelson in 27 years. No one knew what to expect. Winnie was the soul of the South African freedom movement. I came in 1979, quite by chance, got into the country, and she was in band at that time, and we exchanged notes at that time. She never stopped fighting. Winnie was a freedom fighter, a liberator. Not, she was a wife with children. She also was a freedom fighter in her own right, a freedom fighter, a liberator and emancipator. And she gave hope to so many people. She was like the big rock. The big rock does not bow to a storm. The weary can hide under the big rock. Those who are lost can find a guiding post from the big rock. The strong can stand on the big rock, but the big rock never moved. Some went into exile, like Thabo and Becca went to exile to learn, to study, to come back home, to run the country one day, which he did. And of course, others were on Robben's Island. They were jailed. They could see the bright lights of Cape Town. They couldn't move. She never left the belly of the beast. She stood right here and fought like a freedom fighter should.
Wow, amazing. But can you take us back to the first time that you met Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and what it was like to be in her presence?
Always a sense of joy, a ebullient and exciting, a deep thinker, always raising questions about why us, and yet she knew about the tug of war for the soul of South Africa. Would it go forward by hope and healing, backed by hurt and hate? She determined hope would win and love would win. When it had very strong church convictions, and as God would have it, this past Sunday, last past Friday, she went to Good Friday services. She fell sick and left at around the 6th word. And then she went back to church on Sunday. And came home after church and went upstairs, and then she began to make her transition. So I think about Dr. King, April 4th, 50 years ago, Winnie April 2nd, and Nelson Mandela 100 years. We're in the middle of the Dr. King, Nelson Mandela, and Winnie's right in the middle. She's holding these giants up. She's a very special woman. And while there are those who reacted to her as a martyr, they love her as a martyr. You know, we love martyrs because martyrs don't threaten us. Martyrs, we can look up to them. But when you're marching, what's she going to do now? She's always going to, she's going to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. She's a fighter. She's a liberator. And life just sought to discredit her, and disrupt her, and destroy her. We were not successful. Same thing happened to Dr. King. And man, Nelson said Nelson was a communist. He should be banned for life. It just made him stronger. Dr. King, the FBI, they wiretapped his home phone and his office phone in the hotel rooms. We were healed by his stripes. In many ways, we were healed by Winnie's stripes. When it says she didn't die, she multiplied. So it's a way of saying that she will live as long as we remember her. And we will not forget. She will live as long as we remember her, and we will not forget.
Now, there are many parallels you're painting there from Dr. King and to South African Nelson Mandela and Winnie Madikizela Mandela. But I understand that you date back to fighting for civil rights movement for over half a century now, together with Winnie in the 60s and later on in the 70s. But what did she mean to Americans on the ground in the 60s?
Well, when the Rivonia trial took place, we didn't have cable television at that time. We didn't have internet. Didn't have cell phones. Can you imagine? No cell phones, no internet, no Google, no Microsoft, no Facebook. And so the word was still getting out as to what had happened. We didn't know really what. All we know is there was a trial in South Africa. It was not covered so very well, but there was a witness there. Winnie was a witness to watch them take her husband off, and she resolved not to slide into the darkness as a widow and cry, but to stand up as a freedom fighter and fight back for her husband, for those compatriots who were going on to Robben's Island. And so Dr. King in jail in 63, Mandela in jail in 63, yet she emerged as this voice. Who is this woman that's arguing the case They ban her, they exile her, they attack her, discredit her. She keeps on fighting back. She became the face, the soul of the ANC. Now, John McAteeney, who would have been a great leader in the New South Africa, died, had a good brother. He stayed at my house. We, of course, knew Oliver Tambo. We knew Papa Sisulu and Mama Albertina Sisulu. We knew all these people. But when they had that special charismatic gift, that quality that drew people to her, she had that X factor that makes people stand out in a crowd. And so when she would speak, people would listen. And as the movement became more intense, at the darkest hours of apartheid, Alan Bozak was speaking around the world. Alan Bozak, a great speaker, arguing for the Democratic Front, and others were speaking. Winnie Mandela was the light in the darkness. And so that Sunday morning when they walked out of jail, freeing their jailer, when she walked out, Nelson holding her, she had given birth to a new nation. She gave birth to 2 children. She also gave birth to a nation. She is the mother of South Africa, New South Africa. No question about it.
She is certainly the mother of the nation, as we affectionately know her, yeah. But just last week, we were commemorating the 50th anniversary of the passing of Dr. Martin Luther King. Do you believe that the civil rights movement, the struggle for civil rights movement, has moved forward or backwards?
Or forward. And there are great parallels between free South Africa and free Southern America. One, we both were living under forms of occupation, apartheid. You call it apartheid, we call it segregation. Kept apart from, separated. And yet we went from those margins to Pretoria, to the head of the government, to the White House. From Dr. King being on the balcony, where he was killed in Memphis, back at the White House where Barack Obama, son of Africa, stood. It's a 40-year journey. We never stopped fighting. And so when President Obama stood at the White House as president, Nelson Mandela stood here as president. These are steps in the journey. We're not there yet because we're free but not equal. Our share of infrastructure, we were lost a lot of time on the part that locked out of education, there are healthcare gaps, education gaps, and wealth gaps, and ownership gaps. We must heal those breaches. It'll take time to do that. And I think Cyril Ramaphosa is perhaps the right guy to do it because Cyril was a solid labor fighter. He learned corporate skills and management skills. He too a freedom fighter. So the reservoir of leadership now in South Africa is coming to the front. But the mother of that, the wind beneath our wings has been Winnie Mandela.
We are not an equal society. A great point that you're mentioning there. Free but not equal. But do you believe that our black presidents are doing enough to bridge that equality gap?
Well, just like all of us had to work together to end apartheid, we must all work together for equality. Our share of education. And if you're behind, you have to run faster. Our share of education, our share of health care, our share of wages, our share of investment, our share of pension funds, equity and parity. And those who were left behind because the system held them back must be given some extra development. I'm concerned that there's still too many poor people in the country so rich. We're in Sandton this morning, it is so wealthy, the bright lights of Sandton. And yet not far from here, people are still living in very squalid conditions. Everybody must have a house and health care. We must close the health care gap, the housing gap, the jobs gap. We all have a right to the tree of life.
Reverend, a very solid point and very valuable morals that you bring up across there. But what legacy do you think that Winnie Madikizela Mandela has left for the world?
Service and character. She never stopped serving. In the face of the fire, she never was consumed. Someone suffering breeds character. Character breeds faith, and the end faith will prevail. She had the character and the faith. She never surrendered. She never surrendered.